and welcome back to another episode of Logan's Voice, the podcast where we speak the names of those we've lost and shine a light on the crisis that's stealing lives across this country, one poisoned pill or one fatal dose at a time. I'm Doug Ballinger. I'm Logan's dad, and this podcast exists because he's not here to tell his story, so I do it for him and every family walking this same painful road. Today's episode is one of the hardest and most powerful conversations we've ever had on this show. I'm sitting down with a remarkable mother, LaChandra Moore, whose story is almost too heartbreaking to imagine, because in the span of just 4 months, she buried 2 of her adult children, both lost to fentanyl poisoning. There are no words for loss like that. No playbook, no way to prepare your heart for that kind of devastation. And yet, here she is. LaChandra is with me today to share her story, not just of loss, but of love, of faith, of resilience, and of the silence that so many families are forced to live with after this kind of tragedy. We're also going to talk honestly about something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough: how stigma, cultural expectations, and generational silence in the African American community can make this grief even harder to carry. This conversation will move you, it will challenge you, and it will remind you that there is power in speaking your truth, even when the world tries to look away. LaChandra, I'm so honored to have you here today. Thank you for your courage. Let's start with your children. Can you tell me a little bit about your children, what you love most about them, what lit them up?
I can. Thank you, Doug, for having me. Thank you so much. Now, let me tell you about my children, honey. They were some special ones, honey. Now, my son, I called him Woo Woo. Roderick, I called him Woo Woo. That was my little pet name for him because when he was a baby, when I brought him home, that Jeffrey Osborne song was out. You know the Woo Woo song. Can you woo woo woo? And so I used to sing that to my baby, and I just started calling him that, and everybody started calling him that. Now, Woo Woo, he would stack anything up. Once he moved around and started walking, he stacked books up, boxes. He always wanted to jump off of something. Even when he got older, we lived in an apartment that had like a loft. He jumped off of there and had the other kids jumping off of there too.
Oh,
Now
no.
they told me that like recently after he passed. I guess they was keeping his secrets because they ain't had no business doing that.
Right?
He was just, he was a fun loving kid. He was bad now, mischievous, but he was woo. And my baby loved sports. Oh my God, he loved football and basketball.
Did he play sports?
Yes, he played both of them, and he didn't play about that, honey. You get out his way when it's time to play some sports. He was very passionate about that. I'm gonna move over to Deja. That was my little sweetheart. She was the baby. I forgot to mention y'all, Woo was my firstborn too. I had him at 17. But Deja, I had Deja at 27. My children were 10 years apart. Wow, I kind of thought I was too old to be having a baby, but oh well. She was the sweetest little baby, y'all. She was born with no hair. And it's crazy because I was a hairstylist back then. My baby was born with no hair. She was the sweetest little baby, very photogenic, just a nice, mild mannered kid that, she didn't bother nobody. She was just a sweet little girl. And she was an awesome hairstylist. Once she grew up, I guess she watched me do hair. But she could sing. She was very talented. She could make things. She was an awesome hairstylist, like I said. She could dress and she would tell everybody else what to put on. You need to put this on with that and do this with that. And Dej was just Dej. Very spoiled too.
That is awesome. I feel like I know them better
I know,
now
that's
by
what I
you
want you to
telling me,
do.
and I
Yes.
appreciate that. I love those memories. Um, so I don't want to just jump off into the deep end of the pool, but I'm going to. Tell us what took your kids.
Okay, so first off, I want to say that my children, They died 4 months apart. Deja, she passed first on April the 5th, 2021. Uh, Wu passed August 19th, 2021. He was in prison at the time when he passed. Yes, they have drugs in the prison. Everything that they're not supposed to have, they have it. On April the 5th, 2021, I came home from work. I got home about 5:30 that evening, I think, and I found Deja slumped over between the couch and the ottoman.
Was she alone? Was there anybody else there
No,
with her?
no. My other son, my middle son, he had already left for work. He said he left about 1:30. He's a barber. He had already left for work. Me and my children live there. Me and my son Michael and my daughter Deja live there.
Okay.
My daughter Ebony, she was probably at work. She lives in her own place.
Okay.
And my son Roderick was in prison.
Okay.
And so, uh, man, I was devastated. I had grabbed Deja and I dragged her to the floor. I turned her over and I was slapping her and shaking her and just practically beating her, begging her to wake up.
And you were by yourself?
I was by myself.
Bless you.
Didn't have any Narcan. I didn't know to have Narcan. I didn't know that this epidemic was like it was, y'all. I didn't know. I had no idea. 4 months later, I was headed back to work. This is after I got my daughter buried and everything. 4 months later, I was headed to work and I got a call saying that my son had been found unresponsive in his cell. Now, I didn't get a call from the prison officials until like 4 hours after that. The inmates on their cell phone made the call to the streets and let me know that my son was deceased.
Mm. I am so sorry you had to hear that.
I didn't believe it though.
Um, let's talk about how you navigated that grief, that traumatic grief. Because, in my opinion, and from what I've learned from grief counselors, there is a difference in traumatic grief versus, for lack of a better term, regular grief.
This is
So
definitely traumatic.
it is traumatic because it was sudden. And there was nothing you could do. You can't say goodbye. It's trauma. It's trauma that we as parents have to live through. So losing one child is traumatic enough. No parent should have to do it. But losing two just 4 months apart, how did you even survive those early days?
I don't know. I don't know. I just did it. I knew I was trying to stay strong for my other two children. And where I messed up at is that I know better now. If I had taken my children and said, we're going to counseling, we're going to therapy, we're going to get some help, we're going to find out how we can get through this, then I feel like things would have turned out different. But because, and I may be jumping the gun,
It's okay.
because we don't talk about mental health in the black community, because we're not crazy. When you go talk to somebody, oh, you crazy. God can handle everything. That's true. God does. God can fix anything. But God didn't say go and get therapy. Don't go and get therapy. Okay? I needed to get my kids right then and there and take them to get therapy, because we were trying to find out what, how, when, where. How can we get through this? The whole family should have gone because, y'all, we were devastated.
There's no roadmap. There is no guideline to follow. I recommend therapy. And when at Hope Movement, when we meet new people and new families come to us, the case managers talk to them about going to therapy, seeking counseling, being in a grief support group, just to make sure you're not standing there by yourself in your house doing the wrong things to try to get the noise out of your brain. Because so oftentimes what we find is that they're not only the parents, but other family members may take a deep nosedive into their own addictive behaviors just to try to quiet the noise that's in their brains. So I'm glad you brought that up about the therapy. Thank you so much. And we are going to dive deeper later into the cultural differences, what affects the black community, and what keeps them from speaking out and being honest about it. Um, I know after losing one child, because that's what I did, I only have one child, but you have four children, and you were trying to get through the grief of losing Deja, and then you get the phone call about your son. I can't even imagine how that felt. And did you suspect that it was fentanyl right away?
No.
What did you think had happened?
I thought maybe at first I didn't believe it, but then I was like thinking it was COVID or something
Oh,
like
that's
that.
right, because COVID was in
In
full
effect, yeah,
swing
yeah,
then.
yeah, the pandemic. And so when I got the toxicology report, I knew exactly what it was. And I
How
already knew because I had already gotten Deja. I already knew what it was with Deja. I didn't have to get that, but I wanted it anyway because I be wanting I want to have facts. I already knew this, but I not at one moment in my mind did I think about sugarcoating what happened to my child.
I also got a toxicology report. I didn't request that until 4.5 years after Logan died. I didn't know to request it. I got the death certificate. It said accidental due to fentanyl and
Mhm.
cocaine
Mhm.
overdose.
Mhm.
I had to call bullshit on that, and that's when I did a FOIA request and got all of the information. Um, and the toxicology report was overwhelming, to say the least. There
God.
were things on there. I had no idea what xylazine was. I knew what fentanyl was. I knew what heroin was,
Mhm.
cocaine. Those were in his system. Heroin was my son's drug of choice. He suffered from,
You expected to see that.
yeah, I expected to see heroin.
Yeah.
There was zero heroin in him. Zero.
Wow.
So when he lost his mom in January. Mother's Day came around. He came unglued. We talked on the phone constantly. And then a week after Mother's Day is when he got that fatal dose. And I'm sure he went out to find something that he had previously gotten
Mhm.
comfort from and thought it was heroin. It was not. It was cocaine, xylazine, and fentanyl mixed together. And some other drug I can't remember that is made to move the bowels of an animal. Uh, I mean, it's just crazy the stuff they're putting in drugs today.
Mhm.
So once you saw the toxicology report, then you knew what happened to your son.
Right.
What did you do after that?
So I didn't stay silent. I was trying to figure out, well, what am I gonna do? I need to get this word out because if this happened to my children, it's gonna happen to somebody else's. So I need to warn the parents. So I went to social media.
Good for you.
First, I God put it on my heart to start a t-shirt brand because I always wanted to do t-shirts. Me and Deja had talked about it. And so the name One More Kiss came up in my spirit. I didn't understand it why, but I was watching First 48 and a man, his son had died, but anyway, he was saying if he could talk to his son one last time or something like that. I was like, "Oh, that's it. One last one last kiss. No, one more kiss." I wrote both of them down, went back and forth, one back and forth. One more kiss, one last kiss. One last kiss, one more kiss. Went back and forth, and I came up with one more kiss. Because if I could have just one more walk, one more talk, one more laugh, one more hug, share one more meal, drink one more cup of coffee, party one more time with my children. Just one last time. Just one more kiss. And I was like, that's it. And so I started making the t-shirts. I got me a logo and all that stuff. And I went on social media to market. Because now listen, I didn't know how all this was gonna play out. I went on social media on TikTok to market my t-shirt brand. Cause I'm like, I got me a t-shirt brand. I'm gonna sell my t-shirts, make me some money. It went a whole nother direction. Crafting kept my mind off of focusing on what was going on with my children, but people started to ask me. They didn't understand one more kid. So when I explained them why, what is the brand for? What is it for? And when I explained to them and I post pictures of my children, well, what happened to your children? And so I started telling them they died from a fentanyl overdose. That's what I used to say. Until I saw this creator that said that the governor of Texas was not calling it overdose anymore. They were poison. You're going to be charged with murder if you give somebody something that has fentanyl in it and they die. So I was like, yeah, my children were poisoned. And so I started back early 2022 on social media saying fentanyl poisoning. And people wanted to know why I was saying that. And I wanted a story time. So I started talking about it more and more and more. And I started raising awareness. I became an advocate, and I didn't even know what I was doing, but I was just telling my story. And
So
I got deeper and deeper and deeper into it, and I was like, parents, we got to do something about this. And some would jump on board. Nobody would really stick. You know, it was it the African Americans.
that's so let's talk a little bit about that. What is the issue that prevents that community from being more open and honest about drug use and fentanyl poisoning or any kind of overdose for that matter? Is there, in your mind, something culturally that keeps them from doing that?
Yes. When I got on social media, it was a lot of white moms on there. Well, not it wasn't a whole bunch of us on there talking about our children dying from fentanyl poisoning. It was a few. I thought I was at first I was like the only black mom on there. A couple of others trickled in, but I couldn't get and it's don't get me wrong, it's not about race.
Right, right.
But if you see more black moms on there, maybe more of the black community would come in and feel comfortable talking about it because it's not a black or a white drug. And I don't care how we say that's a white folks drug. Our community ain't doing it. Oh, yes, we are, baby. Yes, our black children are dying from fentanyl poisoning. But see, we like to sweep it under the rug because we get embarrassed about it. And the reason why I know that is because when I started talking about it on social media, my daughter asked me, she told me, you gonna tell people what? And I don't think she was meaning no harm. She just talking to her mother asking me this. You know, you gonna tell people what happened in Deja? I didn't even think about lying. I didn't even think about sugarcoating it. Because people need to know what's going on. Because if I had known that this was going on, that this epidemic, it was out here bad like this, I would have had Narcan in my house.
Absolutely.
I would have had Narcan. I could have saved my baby.
Yeah.
Feel what I'm saying?
You would have known. You
I would have
been
known.
You have a fire extinguisher in the house just in case there's a fire.
Exactly.
So
Carbon monoxide detector.
absolutely. So yes, I agree 100% with that. Um, I didn't see Logan. I didn't know about the fentanyl until I got the toxicology report. But, but there was a puncture wound in the top of his right hand. He was right-handed. I don't know how the puncture wound got in there. That is not something I'm willing to dive into because I'm not trying to place blame on anybody. I do believe someone else injected that into him. Have no idea who it was. They're going to have to live with that for the rest of their
Oh, they
lives.
get ghosts. And I
Yes.
say that too. I
Yes.
say that because if you, okay, well, I had prayed. Okay, I found out my daughter was doing pills. I figured out what was going on. So I was praying and asking God, please, I felt like just something bad was going to happen. I was praying, asking God, please don't let me have to go somewhere and identify my daughter's body. Because she taking these pills and stuff. And, you know, everything's fake. Everything's fake.
Everything.
Everything's fake. You can't trust nothing. So I'm like trying to prepare myself for the worst. You never can though. But I came home and found my daughter. But I always stress when I'm talking to people, when I'm talking to the public, I don't care who you're with. You mess around and take something and die, they're gonna leave you right there. You're gonna be thrown over in a ditch somewhere behind a building. Your family got to find you and go somewhere and identify your body. People aren't your friend when it comes to this fentanyl.
At
People
all.
worried about the almighty dollar. They don't care nothing about leaving you somewhere because they got to get ghosts. Nobody wants to be held accountable because they got the police gonna have questions. Nobody wants to take the blame.
I don't know about in Tennessee, but in Arkansas, there are laws that protect the person calling
Right.
and the person having the overdose or poisoning. And if you make that call, that Good Samaritan law protects both of those people, even if they're both using. It's just a matter of trying to save the life.
That's it.
And Narcan can save the life from any opioid overdose. It cannot from xylazine.
Mm.
That's a whole different topic. I've discussed it several times in other episodes of my
Mm-hmm.
podcast, but xylazine is an animal tranquilizer that is not an opioid, no FDA approval for use in humans, no matter how small it is,
Mm-hmm.
and it will kill you faster than fentanyl.
Mm.
Um, what do you wish more people understood about fentanyl deaths and the reality of what's happening in our country, regardless of race?
I wish that people would take heed and just stop trying to act like it's about race. This drug, fentanyl, drugs. Period. It don't matter if you're black, white, purple, green, brown, or polka dot. It doesn't matter if you're rich, you're poor, you live in a gated community, or the ghetto. You are not exempt. And parents, please stop thinking that your children won't do it. Please let let your children know. Your children, your young adults, your college students, let them know that it's dangerous out here. Raise awareness about the dangers of fentanyl and stop trying to make it about it's it's a white person's drug. The black people ain't doing it. They ain't. It's happening. Face reality, please.
Everything out there on the street has poison in it. So,
Everything.
I used to not lock my car when I would get out at the grocery store or something, and I always had a Starbucks cup. Do you know I lock my car now not because I'm worried that somebody's going to steal something out? I'm worried that eventually somebody's going to weaponize the fentanyl
Mm-hmm.
and drop some into my coffee cup.
Yes, that's next. I, I
It,
I I feel like that.
I feel like it's
People
coming.
like to see people dropping dead. I hate to say that, but this world we live in is so cruel. You better not leave nothing sitting around. I don't care if you at a club. I don't care where you at a gathering with your family, because you never know now, because we got these dealers and stuff amongst us and we don't even be knowing about it
Right,
until
right.
they get caught.
So there was obviously a moment when you realized you had to speak out
Yeah.
and start distributing Narcan
Yes.
as fast as you could to everybody. I remember at your event in Memphis,
Mhm.
it was an amazing event. The part I liked the most about it, other than meeting your mom, um, were the people under 18 there.
Yeah.
And the fact that you gathered that many people from the black community
Mm-hmm.
in one spot to talk to them about fentanyl overdose, that was amazing. I was honored by the fact that that's the first place that Logan's picture that I had made was represented.
Yes.
And the fact that you let me speak to him,
Yes.
thank you so much. To get words out to children, I can't
That was
save
my
my son
objective.
anymore. You can't save your children anymore. But if what we say saves one person,
That's right.
then what we're doing in our advocacy role is worth doing. No matter how long it takes us, no matter how many shirts you have to print,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how many coffee cups you have to make, getting that word out is what we have to do. And I'm going to keep screaming it until everyone listens. I
That's
don't know how
right.
I'm going to tell when they listen. Maybe people stop dying at the rate of one
Mm-hmm.
every 5 minutes in this
Mm.
country. Isn't that ridiculous?
You know, I like to say it like this. I like to say that in my advocacy, if I could save one parent from going through the things that I'm going through, I have done my job.
Absolutely. That's amazing.
Yes.
What do you do to keep your children's memory alive in your everyday life?
I'm always making something. I ended up learning how to craft because I started making these t-shirts. So uh I'm always making something. It helps me. And so I do videos, I post pictures of my children. Um just anything that I could do to raise awareness. I get on social media. I say F now. I wear shirts that say F now. I'm trying not to curse because I
You
don't,
can do
yeah,
it.
I fuck fentanyl. That's what I wear on my shirts, and I mean that wholeheartedly. And sometimes I even go as far as to say fuck fentanyl and anybody that's selling it, because I mean that. Y'all ought to be ashamed of yourselves, just like that man told me for wearing my shirt, but he didn't know.
He didn't know
He
that
didn't know
was
my story because he
and
wouldn't dare have said that.
exactly. Um, so you and I both are in a similar situation.
Yes.
You're like twice as deep as me, but it still hurts just
Yes.
as bad. There's no
Yes.
doubt in my mind. What's helped you most in healing?
Raising awareness.
And we're don't get it wrong, everybody. We are not healed. I
No.
don't know that I will ever heal. What about
Mm-mm.
you?
No.
No,
I'm just getting by
but we
in
do
my right
know
mind.
we do learn how to carry the grief and we
Exactly.
become stronger through our
Exactly.
advocacy and raising
Exactly.
awareness. Do you
Yes.
agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Wholeheartedly. Yes. That's it.
Um, and the power comes from somewhere deep inside of me that comes from somewhere way above me.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, what helps you get out of bed on those days when getting out of bed feels impossible?
Hmm. I don't always want to get out of bed.
Me either.
I don't like the Holy Spirit literally, and I say this all the time, has to pick me up and put me on his shoulder and like, okay, come on, get it done. And some days I just want to lay there, but for the most part, I get up out of bed because if I lay there, I get depressed. I don't want to lay there. I got to get up and do something. I have to do something every day. And sometimes I might do too much.
I certainly
You
understand.
know what I'm
I
saying?
wake up really early, and when I say really early, sometimes I'm sitting here at this microphone at 2:30 in the morning recording a podcast. The dog doesn't even get out of bed until 7, but I'll be sitting out here for 4 or 5 hours doing a podcast. Um, how can the community, our friends, our churches, our lawmakers better support families like ours?
Wow. Just at least acknowledge that you hear us, that you understand what we're saying. If I make a post on social media, let me know that you hear me. Share the post. hearted. Don't just scroll by.
Absolutely.
You know, that really makes a difference. And I say I don't care, but it's good to know that people are listening to you. I
Yes.
know it ain't magic that something's gonna happen. It's just the fact that people appreciate you for what you're doing, for what you're trying to do.
Because I know I'm not going to stop talking about it,
I'm not
and
either.
I feel like you're probably not going to
No.
stop talking about it either. Um, and the more we say it, and it may sound redundant, I may put too many posts out one day
Oh my
on
God.
Facebook.
May not put enough out
It
sometimes.
may not put enough out. That one person that needs to hear the message may not see it that day.
Yeah.
And that I don't care if you don't like it, block me.
Yeah.
I don't care. Um so here's a tough one. And I may need to give you a Kleenex before I ask the question.
Okay.
If you could say one more thing to your children, what would you say?
Wow. Listen, man, I'm proud of my children. I don't feel bad. I don't feel no embarrassment about the way that y'all went out. I love you. And I want y'all to keep on looking over me and your other siblings and giving me the strength to keep going in this advocacy. I love y'all. And I know that that's the reason why I'm so strong. Because I could hear my kids' voices sometimes when I feel like I'm about to give up and I get tired because I feel like other people not listening and people are constantly dying. It's like my son will be like, Mom, you straight, Mom? You straight? You okay? My daughter Days will be like, girl, you better snap out of it. For real, that's how she just real jazzy. Man, I know my kids. I know it's because of them that I can keep going. I know it is.
Their death doesn't define them.
It doesn't.
It was just one mistake that happened that they couldn't recover
I'm
from.
proud of my children.
But their life is what defined them. And they were good kids. That's one common thread I hear from talking to any parent that has lost a child to this epidemic. One common thread is that they were all good, loving, caring children. So,
See,
go ahead.
that's what I'm saying. They were all good, loving, caring children. Man, just like y'all kids out there, just like your kids. It could happen to anybody. Please don't ever forget that. It could happen to anybody, any one of our kids, any
Don't
one of.
Right. Don't think it cannot happen to you because
Please.
it can. So, how can people connect with you, LaChandra, and honor your story and join you in raising awareness?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook as LaChandra Moore, my name, and I'm also on Instagram as I am underscore fentanyl awareness queen, and on TikTok I am fighting for fent awareness. And I also have another TikTok page that says Forever Mind Boutique, FOUREVERMINE. The Forever Mind stands for my four children. That's why I spell it like that.
Oh,
Yes. So y'all hit me up. Send me a DM and we can talk. Okay?
there you go. And so, can we get in a little deeper about the cultural difference? Do you mind?
Oh man.
Okay. So, in your experience, has being a black mother shaped the way your grief has been received
Let
or
me.
not received?
Okay, so let me say this. I guess, but I guess it's just in my community. Like I'm still grieving, and like you were talking about earlier, uh, people may think that we're okay. I'm not okay, but I'm just going on because I got to. I gotta, I gotta keep the message going.
And you have two other kids
I have
that
to
are still alive.
exactly that I have to tend to. I have grandchildren. Now, a lot of my community thinks that, well, it's been 4 years. You should be done crying by now.
Nope.
There's no time limit on grief, and I don't like that. That people think I'm crazy because I get out here and I do these videos and I just flat out get on the internet and talk about my children dying from fentanyl poisoning. I gotta be crazy because everybody else that it happens to, and believe me, it's plenty of more people. They just don't like to talk about it. They like to sweep it under the rug. That's your business, but I'm going to talk about it. I'm not crazy. I'm in my right mind, and we gotta stop this, y'all. We gotta stop this.
And that's what the message is. It doesn't matter what color your skin is, whether you're a man or a woman,
That's right.
grief happens and it is not linear. I know that one of the things that I'm trying to raise awareness about is that men, I'm a father.
Hmm.
My son is dead. There are other fathers that their children have died from this ridiculous epidemic and they just bottle it up. Someday that's going to explode on them.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And family, friends, they don't know how to talk to us. So here's something that I've
I'm
learned
glad you said that.
is when Logan first died, I got all the hugs. People are saying I'm sorry. But after that, people don't know what to say to you.
They don't.
And so I get Logan's name tattooed. That's actually his signature that I got tattooed. Lifted it off of his DUI paperwork just because that's the only place where he said his whole name, wrote his whole name. People ask about it, and I tell them, yep, that's my son's signature. He died in May of 2020 of fentanyl poisoning. Boy, talk about shutting down a conversation.
Ooh, baby, you say something about fentanyl, honey. These people don't want to talk about that.
They do not know what to say.
They get ghost on you.
So that happens in both of our communities.
It does. People don't feel comfortable talking about it.
I don't feel comfortable not talking about it.
I don't feel comfortable not talking about it, baby. I guess to let you know. Because, like I said, if I had known about how bad fentanyl was, I bet you I would have had Narcan in my house.
I have Narcan in this house. And Brandy and I don't do drugs. I don't know that my next door neighbor's not going to have a problem one day and the mama's knocking on my door screaming. I will grab the fentanyl and run that way. I mean, not the fentanyl, the Narcan.
Yeah.
We often hear the phrase, what happens in this house stays in this house. How do cultural norms around privacy and strength impact our willingness to talk openly about things like substance use and mental health?
Listen, that's a old. I've been hearing this since I was a little kid, and that's the reason why so many things go on, and people don't want to talk about it. I'm gonna say it used to go on. These days, people are talking about stuff. They're talking about, sexual abuse within the family, all this stuff, but they don't want to talk about. Wait a minute, they'll call somebody a crackhead or something. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when it comes to fentanyl, they don't want to talk about that. If somebody died from fentanyl, they sweeping it under the rug because people are embarrassed.
Because of the stigma around substance use disorder.
And we're with mental health. We ain't going to see no doctor because we ain't crazy. God gonna fix it. Yeah, God gonna fix it, but we still need some therapy, y'all. Come on.
Do you think systemic inequalities like lack of access to mental health care, criminalization, over treatment, or media bias play a role in keeping the conversations hidden in communities of color?
Yeah, I feel like because I feel like they just, if somebody gets in trouble, especially if they're an addict, put them in jail. They're dope heads. They need to go to jail anyway. Y'all, it's deeper than that. People have mental health issues. We need to try to treat it. We need to try to treat the problem instead of just throwing them in jail. But people feel like addicts, they're nothing. They need to be in jail anyway. Oh, they're crazy. They got mental health issues. Put them in the crazy house. At some point, it's got to be treated.
And one of the things that I get concerned about is that there's so much focus on shutting the border down. But that's not just how these things are getting into the country. It's, we can do we could lock it down and not let anybody in or out from here on out. That's not going to solve the problem.
It's not
The
going to solve it.
problem is a mental health or mental wellness issue. And until we learn how to address substance use disorder and other mental health issues,
Exactly.
then we're not going to solve the problem.
That's
Because the
true.
cravings are going to still be there. There's just people who make money off of learning how to supply the demand. You got to fix the demand.
You got to
Do
fix the demand.
you agree with that?
I do. I agree with that.
How has your view of advocacy changed as you've stepped into this space, especially as a Black woman speaking out about overdose and fentanyl poisoning losses?
Okay. Okay, so my advocacy has taken me a long way. Now, I have gotten better educated on the reason why people become addicted. It goes back to mental health. And so, with that being said, I learned about the Medicaid Assisted Treatment Program, the MAT program. And I am fighting to get those programs inside of the prisons. And I think I'm like that because my son died when he was in prison. And so people are getting addicted to drugs in the prison, or because my son had been locked up a while, okay?
And
So
it's supposed to be an environment protected from
exactly.
those kind of
Exactly.
situations.
So they definitely need it in there because people are coming in off the streets that are addicted to drugs. And if they just sitting in there not learning anything, not doing anything, not getting any counseling, guess what they're gonna do after they get through with their bid? They're gonna go right back out and they're gonna do drugs. What if they do a lot of years? And when they went in, fentanyl was nowhere around. But when they get out, it's around. Guess what's going to happen? They're going to go out and you're going to be burying your loved one. That one that went in crazy and addicted to drugs. So I am a advocate for the MAT program. That's what I'm saying. I want them to implement a program in prison, such as the MAT program, to get them give them medication to get off drugs. And I know a lot of people say that it's one drug replacing another, but everybody is not going to stay on it. They're going to taper down. They're going to get counseling and therapy to explain to them how and why they are doing this.
Okay, LaChandra, as we start to wrap up our conversation here on this episode of Logan's Voice, I know that I'm affiliated and involved with Hope Movement Coalition at hopemovementcoalition.com. I'm actually on their executive board. And I do everything I can to help raise awareness about this epidemic. What kind of groups are you affiliated with? And I think you have your own group, right?
Yes, I have One More Kiss. It is a nonprofit organization. I've had One More Kiss since late 2022, and starting in 2023, I had my first fentanyl awareness event. And just last month in March 2025, I had my third annual fentanyl awareness event where I try to get the community together. And I have guest speakers there. I feed you real good, and I raise awareness myself along with the guest speakers. We try to educate the community, especially the younger generation, about the dangers of fentanyl. And as you heard Doug say, how awesome my event was, that was his first time attending. I expect for every year to get better. And I want y'all to join me. Okay? So when I put my flyers out on social media, y'all share the flyer. Come to the event. I promise you, you won't be disappointed.
And you'll get to eat some wonderful food and meet wonderful people.
That's right.
Randy and I drove over there the night before because we drove from Little Rock to Memphis, stayed at a friend's house, and the next day we got up and went to your event.
Yeah.
And I was very happy to be there. It was an awesome thing.
And I appreciate you
Um,
coming.
is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap up?
No, no. Just make sure y'all follow me on my social media and, stay tuned. I got some great things coming,
It's
and I would love for the communities to support me.
Yes, I think that's a great aspiration.
Yes.
LaChandra, thank you again for being here and thank you for trusting us with your story. Thank you for speaking your children's names and for giving voice to a grief most people can't even begin to imagine. Losing one child is already unimaginable. Losing two in just 4 months is a level of pain that no parent should have to endure. And yet you've chosen not to only survive it, but to share it, to speak the truth to the silence, and to fight for awareness in honor of the lives you carried, raised, and still deeply loved. Roderick and Deja will always be remembered as long as there's breath in your body. There's no doubt in my mind. Your courage is not just inspiring, it's sacred. And to those listening, if you've lost someone to fentanyl poisoning or overdose, you are not alone. And if you're part of a community where grief like this isn't often spoken out loud, I want you to know your voice matters. Your pain is real, and your story deserves to be heard. The stigma has silenced us for too long. It's time we break that silence together. In this episode, if we moved you, please share it. Tell someone about it. Say the names of those you've lost. And if you're struggling with substance use right now, don't carry it alone. There are people, groups, and spaces where you'll be welcomed without judgment, including right here. We don't need to be perfect. We just have to be present. We don't have to fix it. We just have to feel it. And LaChandra, may your children's names, Roderick and Deja, echo in every life this episode touches. May their memories be a light for others walking in darkness. Thank you all for listening. Until next time, keep speaking, keep loving, and above all, keep remembering. I am Logan's voice. I am Logan's dad, and I will not be silent any longer.